could see that there was a light down at the end of the tunnel that was getting brighter as I got closer to it. But through it, I could see images forming on the walls of the interior of this tunnel that I was going through. Different memories, different things that had happened through my life. And then I saw a vision, if you want to call it that, of my young son receiving the news that I had passed, and his mother telling him. And I saw his reaction and what he would say. Then I looked to my left, and I saw an image of my mom receiving the same news via telephone. And it's important that I point these details out to you because later it's going to come in play. That she received the news that I had passed away over the telephone. And her exact words were, "Oh my God, no, not my son." And as I got past that, suddenly I saw an image, a silhouette of someone at the end of the tunnel. And before I could even make out the face of the person, I knew already who it was. And it was my grandfather, who I was very, very close to. And he was standing there and had this big, huge smile on his face. And he looked slightly younger than what he had been, and well, actually a lot younger. He looked like he was in his 40s, but I still knew it was him. And he was down at the end of the tunnel. He was waiting on me, and his arms outreached for me. And I got about, I would say, 10 feet from him. And suddenly I stopped. And he looked up, and this light shone down on him like a countenance on him. And he closed his eyes for a second, and then he looked at me, and his eyes just looked so, he always had really beautiful crystal blue eyes, but they looked even more crystal blue eyes. And he looked at me, and he smiled, and he said, "It's not your time yet. You've got to go back, but I'll see you soon." And then soon, I guess, could be the next time that I did have another NDA. I saw him again, or NDE, rather, I'm sorry. I'm so used to screenplay terminologies. But that particular time, he told me that I had to go back, but he told me, "But tell your grandma, I'll be seeing her real soon." My grandmother died 7 months later.
Wow.
And as I told him, I said, "I don't want to go back." He says, "But you got to. It's not your time yet." And he says, "All right, now go." And as he said that, it was like something was pulling on me to come back through that tunnel. Every motion that I had made going through it suddenly now was in reverse. And I was going backwards. And I didn't really want to go. I'm not going to lie. And 'cause I just felt this sense of completeness and this feeling of tranquility that I had never felt in my entire life. And as I went back through the tunnel, I could see the earth coming closer in. And as I got closer to the earth, and it was, seriously going through the atmosphere, I could see pinpoint the hospital. I saw the rooftop of the hospital. I went through the rooftop, and I went through 2 floors to the next floor, and suddenly I was in the OR room where they had me at. Now, back to the story up just a little bit, and I purposely did this. When they were transporting me from the bridge to the hospital, which was only 7 minutes from where I was, the hospital was only 7 minutes from where the accident happened. And it was listed as one of the top 14 worst accidents in that year. I crashed completely. I died, and they tried using the paddles on me, and I've got a little small scar on my chest from where they stuck me with that shot, the needle, to revive your heart. They stuck me with that, and then they used the paddles, and they brought me in as DOA. That's what they had it listed on the report, and that I was DOA, and there was no pulse, no breath. And so they brought me into the ER section, and then they brought me into the OR section, and the surgeon was in there, and I was floating. I'm just like hovering above my body. I could look down and see my body, see them trying to work on me, trying to put an air tube in through my mouth. And he's asking the nurse that was to my right, he says, "What's his pulse?" And she says, "I can't get one." He goes, "What's his temp?" And they said 58, which is 58 degrees. As you know, that's too cold for a body. And he says, if I can't get a GD, and I won't use the profanity words, if I can't get a GD pulse soon, I'm going to call him. And the nurse says, I can't get his vein. I can't get a needle into his vein. They've already collapsed. I heard everything that was going on. And suddenly it was like, you know how you flush the toilet and it starts downwards? Yeah. I suddenly went back into my body, and when I did, I opened my eyes, spewed blood out my mouth, what was left of my mouth, and I spewed blood out, and all of a sudden, I had a pulse, I had a temp, I was revived. And I wrote down, because I couldn't talk for several times, I had to have my jaws wired together for, it was 12 weeks. But I was able to write, and I wrote down exactly word for word what the nurses and the doctor had said, and they were amazed. And I can't tell you how many nurses came by and asked me, did I see God? Did I see Jesus? Did I see this one? You know, I mean, I even had some really far out ones. Did you see Elvis? You know, so, and the doctor actually came by and spoke to me privately and said, I've seen a lot of cases, but I've never seen anyone come back with full functionality. I mean, they tested me from end to end, and I had no brain scarring, nothing. They did MRIs after MRIs to see if there was any blood clots, if it was causing anything, nothing.
Yeah, because normally
I was clinically dead. Yeah, clinically dead for 12 and a half minutes.
Normally you get brain swelling and all that starts forming.
Yep. And especially I had a severe facial injury. My whole lower left and right jaw was shattered in so many pieces that they had to put it back together with titanium steel. So I've always said I had a tough jaw. And my chin is made out of cement. So it's not the actual facial that I had originally, but it serves me well. So yeah, it's a miracle that I'm here on that one incident.
Now I gotta ask you a question. Okay, when you transgressed and you left the planet and you went to where heaven is or that other dimension, wherever you ended up, and you were going down the path, and you seen like, did you see the good and bad things you did in life?
You only see from my perspective, okay? So I can't speak for others, but I have spoken with other NDE survivors. All of us seem to have the exact same thoughts on that. We are only shown all the high points of our lives, things that made a change, made a difference. Now, when I returned, and I'll go ahead and conclude that part there on that particular NDE, when I was able to actually communicate with my son and communicate with my mom, of course, my son was young at that time; he was 6. And I've spoken to him many times afterwards, many throughout the years, about this. And I conversed with his mother, who was not really a favorable person of mine, but did speak with her. What I saw in that tunnel, and when my mom got the phone call from the hospital to tell her that they told my mom that I had passed away, that I was dead. So my mom got that phone call just like I saw it. And she said the exact same words that I heard her say. My son was told the exact same thing because they called my ex-wife because she was listed as another point of contact. And they called her and told her that I had passed away, that I was DOA at the accident. So she went through the entire night thinking that I had stayed dead. I'm sure she was throwing a party. But she told my son the next morning when he woke that I was dead. So everything that I saw in that tunnel that I had no way of ever seeing actually did happen. So it's not just the experiences that you did have, but what you get to see from what I got to see. What will life be like without you? It's almost like the Jimmy Stewart movie, the Wonderful Christmas movie. It's that that's the kind of way it was for me. I got to see just for a brief moment what the two people who were most important to me, what their reactions would be upon receiving the news that I was taken. You did mention about heaven, and let me explain that one real quick. I've told you earlier, heaven is not an up, and hell is not a down. You and I both know we're of the scientific world. You go far out, far enough out into the atmosphere, you're in outer space, and wherever it goes from there. And if you go far enough down, you go, you don't hit China. You eventually could, I guess, but you go through molten lava, which nothing can survive. Now, if somebody wants to perceive that as being hell, then fine, so be it. But me personally, what I believe is hell and heaven both are separate dimensions than what we are in. They are dimensions that were created specifically for the afterlife.
That's a good way. Sometimes I don't know if you ever thought that. Sometimes I think life on this planet is hell, that we are paying for something we did in a past life. And that's when we, try to improve so we can be reincarnated and come back into a better life, maybe in a parallel, planet, universe or something. I don't know. But I got to ask you a question. How did this first near death, or I'm going to call it a death experience, okay? How did it affect your life afterwards with your family, with your mother, your father, friends you work with? How did you change, or did you change?
Well, I did. I did have some memory loss at first. It did return, and it returned in spades. But it was like my because if your brain suffers a contusion to it, certain memories that would be painful for you to be able to make your full recovery, it blocks it out. It automatically does. It does like a purge. Let me put it this way: it saves it to the cloud. Okay, it saves those memories to the cloud. Speaking computer technology here, and it will be there when you're ready, when you're physically and mentally able to handle that memory will return. So it's never totally gone. It's just they're waiting. All right. So I did get those memories back, and it was over a period of months, and sometimes it was over a period of years on certain little small things, nothing major. And I would, thought it had been something horrific that it was been blocking out, but it wasn't. It was just like certain little things. And, but there was nothing wrong with my cognitive abilities to being able to communicate or anything like that. I was able to walk. I was able to talk. I was able to write my name. I knew current events. Nothing was lost that was of any great importance. The thing that I gained from it on that near-death experience or death experience, and I'm closer to believing what you say about death experience because I did technically die, and I was pronounced dead by 3 different individuals, of the medical field. It gave me the perspective of knowing heaven is real, that there is an afterlife, that all this talk that I had heard before, people talking about tunnels and what have you, and me thinking that, maybe they just dreamed that or whatever, it's real. It's very real. So it comes from a skeptic, and you and I, we've talked before privately on certain things about paranormal things, and I'm a skeptic to the most part. And if I can't see it, if I can't feel it, can't touch it, I'm going to do my best to dissect it. So if I dissect it, and if I can prove that there's even an ounce of ability for something to be false, I'm automatically going to conclude that it's false. So that's the skeptic in me. So me saying that there is an afterlife doesn't come without me feeling totally committed to being able to say that. I validate it because the fact that wasn't my only time of having that near-death experience. Had 5 more after that. It all fell within a short time period. But so, I didn't evidently learn everything that I needed to learn in the first time. So I was given that permission to exit the world again and again and again.
Okay, let's go on.
And
let's go.
Go ahead.
RW.